Yari Wall in Shogun 2 Total War is without a doubt the game's most iconic ability, with its relative strength being incredibly high and the best way to use Yari Ashigaru on higher difficulties. However, was the ability really healthy for the game, or did Yari Wall bring some negative qualities with it? Hi, I'm Healer Knight, and I've played Shogun 2 for way too many hours not to talk about the intricacies of this video game. And today, I will be discussing everything to do with Yari Wall, its strengths, use cases, and the pros and cons of having the current state of the ability. But before we start today, I would like to extend discussion to the comment section. If you think of something interesting or would like to comment on a point I make today, you are absolutely welcome to in the discussion box down below. Let's begin. Yari Wall is an ability unique only to the Yari Ashigaru, the peasant melee unit. Okay, I mean, I guess it's also available to the Order Long Ashigaru too, but they're like kind of the same, so yeah. It is a toggleable ability, meaning that the unit can be moved in and out of the stance on a button click, and there is virtually no cooldown. Upon activation, the unit condenses, becoming closer together, and they hold their spears out in front of them. In this state, they move really slowly, but are resistant to charges. Yari Wall exists as a way to bolster the strength of the Yari Ashigaru unit in fights, especially in ones where they need to defend from charging aggressors. Yari Wall also exists as a way for Yari Ashigaru to better hold space in choke points, or in the center of big fights. Yari Wall is not designed to be an aggressive ability, as the slow movement speed makes it easy for enemies to run away before a melee fight even takes place. So, what are the pros of having Yari Wall in the game? Pros. The ability is generally very fun to use, and provides an avenue of skill expression for the player to utilize within their campaign. The ability is also unlocked at the very start of the game along with the Yari Ashigaru as a unit. This makes the ability a great way to teach the player about how abilities work. And finally, the ability enables the expression of a defensive playstyle in the early game. But I'm sure most of you who clicked on this video know a lot about Yari Wall, so let's skip right to the real meat of the topic, which are the cons. Many of you have probably seen this clip of a Yari Ward Ashigaru unit beating a charging Yari Samurai unit. The fight is close, but the Ashigaru do win. The problem with this is that Yari Ashigaru costs roughly half of a Yari Samurai unit. This is also where the conception of Yari Samurai being weak as a unit originates from, which they're not, by the way. As a result, the priority for certain samurai units completely shifts in the mid-game, as katana samurai are heavily favored for domination over these Yari Ashigaru Yari Walls. Yari Wall also has the added effect of making fights feel a bit boring, especially when attacking versus other Yari Ashigaru. Typically, to make the AI lose their defensive advantage when you're attacking, it is a good idea to start an archer battle. But, what do you do if you know that you're going to lose said archer battle? This ability being in the game can make aggressive fights really hard to win against AI armies of similar force. And to win, you kind of just have to bait them out and use your own Yari Wall better than they can. I personally find this gameplay to be just a bit boring. I like charging and attacking, and so I don't want to feel forced to play defensive in every single early game fight. Another con with the ability is that having Yari Wall eats into the general power budget of the Yari Ashigaru unit, which makes it an overall weaker unit. While this isn't very noticeable in the early game, as you get into the mid game, if you're not using Yari Wall, Yari Ashigaru are kinda just pointless. Now don't get me wrong, this is by design, but it is very noticeable and also very polarized. And finally, with Yari Wall being so strong, it raises the power level of a few clans in comparison. The two notable ones that I want to talk about here are the Order and the Oyoiyoi. The strong Order Ashigaru basically make them one of the strongest factions in the game, and at least at the start. For the Oyoiyoi, Yari Wall as an ability raises the priority of their unique Lone Sword Ashigaru, which absolutely tear through Yari and make the swords really strong as well. Now, I know I just made the Yari Wall seem absolutely busted, but I assure you it's not. There is some counterplay. The first big counterplay I want to talk about is archers. As you can see, these Yari Ashigaru do tend to bunch up and make themselves really easy to be gunned down by a rain of arrows. Heavy archer comps that utilize good positions will just decimate Yari walls. Another way to deal with Yari walls can be to exploit the low movement speed of the Yari wall and to use cavalry to flank other key units in their armies, like archers, like generals, or even siege units. And finally, there's also sword units, which just tear through Yari Ashigaru, wall or not. Specifically here, I would like to highlight that if you are either struggling to deal with Yari walls, or just hate dealing with the ability, try building into No Dachi Samurai. These guys are so underrated when it comes to demolishing Yari walls, and their charges are also just really fun to play with. If you have an aggressive playstyle, this unit will be for you. Just make sure you give them a little bit of armor as well so they don't get destroyed by archers, and you'll be golden. There are two major tricks when it comes to Yari War that the AI struggles to pull off, and players have also learned how to do. The first strategy is for when you're attacking. Charge at your enemies with your Yari Ashigaru and hit the Yari wall right before you get into combat, to give your units better stats and an increased chance of winning the fight. The second one is more general, but when moving a unit in Yari Wall, you can press on the run button or double click to get them running. They're still slower than usual, but it's roughly the same speed as walking normally, and this can be useful in fights when you need your combat and your mobility. So then, what can be said about Yari Wall? It's a hilariously overtuned ability with lots of strengths that manages to warp the entire early game of the Shogun 2 meta. I truly believe that if Shogun 2 wasn't 15 years old at this point, the devs could try to balance the ability or even move the ability onto being unlockable with the technology to make the early game more aggressive and interesting. But, in saying that, Yari Wall should never change, and that is because being this strong for so long, the ability has gained a reputation, a culture, and a sense of nostalgia for Shogun 2 players. I personally wouldn't trade Yari Wall for anything, and I'm sure most of you can agree with me on that. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like the video if you found it interesting. Go check out my previous Shogun 2 video if you haven't already. Do you think the current version of Yari Wall belongs in Shogun 2? I'll be interested to see your comments and insights in our comment section. Until next time, Healer Knight out.